Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today on fairly short notice, and even though it's not her day to do it, Amanda Suffecool of Eye on the Target Radio answered my desperate plea about an hour ago and said, yeah, I'll come on and fill in. Amanda, thanks for coming on the air today.
No problem, Paul. Anytime, anytime. You know, we're talking guns and civil rights and Constitution. What's not to love?
I'm telling you, and we've got good news, but before we get into the news, as I always do, I want to remind people, if you're watching on the Polite Society podcast, Facebook, or YouTube feeds, you can comment on those live videos. We'll get those comments, we'll get them up on the air, and we'll discuss them. If you're catching us anywhere else, I may or may not get the comment. So if you really want to get a comment on the air, fire on over to the YouTube or the Facebook channel and get your comment in there, and we'll get them up. Amanda, first story, and this is one actually when I made the phone call to you, you said, have you heard about this? At that point, I hadn't yet, but we've got news today out of the Fourth Circuit. A federal judge in Virginia ruled on Wednesday that federal laws that require individuals to be at least 21 years old to purchase handguns from a federally licensed firearm dealer, that's unconstitutional. This is Judge Robert E. Payne, who was nominated to the bench by President George H.W. Bush. He says in his ruling, because the statutes and regulations in question are not consistent with our nation's history and tradition, therefore, they cannot stand. Apparently, he did a lot more quoting of Bruin in his full ruling. This is the 4th District, and I'm going to come down in my broadcast software, and right over here, I'm going to put this up into the broadcast. 4th Circuit, as you can see right there, is West Virginia, Maryland. D.C. has its own circuit, but North Carolina, South Carolina, that's all the 4th Circuit. If you live like me in South Dakota or like Amanda in Ohio, those are different circuits. And so if you're 18, 19, and 20 years old, I wouldn't rush out there and buy a handgun just yet. But it looks like in the 4th Circuit, Amanda, bad law is going away.
I think there's two things that are kind of interesting with this. If you would go back to the map for a second.
Yeah. There we go.
Because part of the rule is, folks, that when a circuit court makes a decision, they make the decision for that entire circuit. That's why sometimes the Supreme Court will send it back down to a circuit to decide, and then sometimes the circuits want to send it down to a state, because if it's going to be a decision they don't love, they want it to be as small as possible. And if it is a decision they love, they want it to be as big as possible. So I wanted you to kind of see that. Now take a note as to where Florida is, and it is in the 11th Circuit, because I added another story to the show notes that you had sent me, Paul, and that story, the very bottom, is a congressman who was active in the Florida legislature when Parkland happened, who is now on the federal side, and he in turn wants to make the standard purchase year age, whatever that word is. He wants to extend it and make it bigger. What's the number?
He wants to take it from 18. This is all semi-automatic firearms. From 18 all the way up to 25.
Right. So you can join the military at 18, but you got to wait 7 more years before you can buy a gun. Right? Yeah. So we know that based on this 4th Circuit decision, and we know that he's quoting Bruin, history, text, and tradition, We know that this Florida dude is not going to win. We
No.
know that he is out there. I mean, he's not even out in left field. He is out in far left field. And
He's in the
so it's just
parking lot. He's not even in the field on the field. He's in the parking lot.
exactly. But it just struck me as funny, funny, that both of those stories came out today. So here is the Fourth Circuit saying this, and then here's this dude saying this, and he's so wrong. But I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
I did something when I was reading this story that I almost never ever do. I went down and went to the comments.
Yell out loud?
No,
Oh.
I went to the comments, which is poison for me because it just gets my blood boiling, gets me inflamed. There was one great comment, this from Scott Jameson, 2100. The Founding Fathers put a number of age restrictions in the Constitution. You have to be 25 years old to serve in Congress, 30 if you want to be a senator, 35 for president. I'm pretty sure they would have put the minimum age of 21 in the Second Amendment if they'd meant to restrict our rights in any way. I love that comment.
That is great comment. That really is. Because most of the time it's like, don't read the comments. Just don't. Walk away.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially if it's about you. If it's a story about you, don't. Just don't. Don't.
Oh, when I had my issues in Nebraska, I absolutely learned that one, including if somebody mentions you on Facebook and you happen to be getting a bunch of attention, ignore it all. So, yeah.
Got it.
But yeah, the great news out of the Fourth Circuit, and yeah, honestly, with the Senate makeup of what it is, the chances of semi-automatic purchase age going to 25 it's
it's not. Yeah, it's absolutely not going to happen. As a matter of fact, they're trying to currently try to pass a stand your ground bill, and so that is going the opposite way than Mr. Florida legislature wants.
Yeah. I got that later in the show notes again, but we're kind of jumping around, but that's us.
Us? You mean Flighty?
Well, there you go. This firearmsnews.com. That they wrote a story last month about how Washington Post was trying to resurrect the debate over stand your ground laws, even when the example the newspaper focused on wasn't even a case involving stand your ground. What they didn't realize was their resurrection of the debate topic has fueled a fire on the other side of the gun control movement, with two strongly pro-freedom federal lawmakers now planning to introduce a stand your ground measure in Congress. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen out of Oklahoma and Representative Matt Gaetz out of Florida plan to introduce the measure soon. If passed, it would allow the use of deadly force to prevent death or great bodily harm without the duty to retreat that is on the books in some states. I would love to see this happen. Again, it's got to get through the House, get through the Senate, and have Biden sign it. So I don't see this happening in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I don't either. But as Thomas Massey had said one time, come to us with your pro-gun bills, because if we are on the offensive, we're not on the defensive. And so the more bills that we put this way makes them all frantic and clutchy, and keeps them from pushing anti-gun laws at us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that Pete over at Gun Websites brings up often. It's a term called the Overton window. If we keep pushing harder and harder and harder to get our rights back, that keeps them on the defensive. The anti-right side keeps them on the defensive and makes it look more normal for more freedom to happen.
Yeah. Well, I am headed to DC on Monday, meeting with Thomas Massey on Tuesday, and with a couple others. So a couple of the DC Project gals are going to have some conversations about just about a couple different bills that we are interested in. They're all very positive ones. And it's great when we can set up. I think we've got set up like 6 or 7 different appointments in a day and a half.
That's absolutely fantastic, and I'm gonna turn this into a little bit of a plug for the DC project. My beautiful wife Susan is the South Dakota State Director for the DC project, and I gotta say that yourself, Rebecca Schmoy, Carrie Ann Auclair out of excuse me, Massachusetts. Thank you. My brain froze for a second. There are so many ladies that are doing such good, not only going to DC, but doing great stuff in their home states. DC Project is making a lot of difference with very little people.
Oh yeah, it is pretty amazing, the accomplishments that the DC Project is doing and has done. And I want to do a shout out to the Illinois State Director, Lori Blackwell. And she did an event in conjunction with the Armed Women of America last weekend in Kankakee. I have to stop and think about how you say that. Kankakee, Illinois. And so
about an hour south of Chicago.
Yeah, she did her annual fundraiser, and she knocked it out of the park. It was so much fun. And it's really good stuff when people, and she doesn't live in free America. I mean, they know that they're fighting and they know that they're winning, but for the Illinois folks, they're not sure that they believe it yet.
And I'm gonna turn that plug around and plug my own organization. Well, not mine, but the organization that I'm employed by, the Second Amendment Foundation, because the reason we're winning is because of lawsuits.
Yes.
And lawsuits aren't free. We may get some attorney's fees back when we win, but that isn't the entire cost of the lawsuit that comes back to the Second Amendment Foundation. It takes cubic dollars for these lawsuits to get to the Supreme Court, and then cubic dollars squared to get it through the Supreme Court. So
right.
if you're not a member of SAF, please, it's $150 for a lifetime membership. If you are a lifetime member, kick in another $50 every once in a while. It really does help.
Bone. Yeah, it really is. And when you start to look at the lawsuits that are happening, I mean, look at Bruin. Let's just take Bruin for a second. Bruin, when Bruin was passed in June of 2022, it has since been cited. I know that at like 7 months, it had been cited 290 times in additional lawsuits. So I don't know what that number is now. I want to know, but it really is, when they talk about case law, when they talk about something setting the precedent, that is it. And Bruin didn't just happen because of the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, though they were key. It was Second Amendment Foundation. It was amicus briefs from Firearms Policy Coalition. It was, funding from the NRA. It was all of these groups working together, not hating one another, working together to accomplish this, which was pushing the left over the cliff and having them lose their own minds.
I want to get a comment in here real quick from the Facebook side. Greg Rock says he emailed legislators in North Carolina to get permitless carry soon. We had on Monday night one of my regular contributors on the Polite Society podcast is John Richardson. And from what I heard Monday night, it really looked like permitless concealed carry in North Carolina was absolutely on the ropes. It wasn't dead, but it was on life support, and they were getting the paddles out and getting it warmed up. I don't know if anything has changed there, but I would dearly. We're currently at 27. Once Nebraska and Florida go into effect this summer and this fall, I would love to see 28, 29, maybe 30 happen this year.
Yeah. So as I understand it from North Carolina, there are some things that they've tried to put in, some poison pills, if you will, to Florida is constitutional carry, permitless carry light. And North Carolina would be even less than that. And so I think that there were some people who were pushing back and saying, I'd rather not have it than have what you're trying to pass off. And so I think that there is some where people are like, well, a little piece of pie is better than no pie. And other people are going, that's not pie, that's rat poison. So I don't know. I don't really know. And I have not dug into it personally enough to know which side of that statement to be on. I know that John knows it. So tune in on Monday, this next Monday, and you'll ask the hard questions once again of John Richardson.
Yeah, we'll get the full story again Monday on the Polite Society podcast, which you get the same place you're getting this right now. I broadcast all the same places, plus 2 more. So if you're watching us live right now, watch us again Monday night. Michael on the Facebook side has an interesting comment. We need reciprocity to go to SCOTUS next. This is not a direct corollary, but I still, even after my stroke, because I haven't had to renew my license yet, I have a commercial driver's license that will allow me to operate a commercial vehicle in any of the 50 states. Yes, I could drive a big truck in Hawaii. Who would want to? But I can. My South Dakota enhanced concealed permit is good in 39 states, not 50. I'm kind of with Michael on that. I wish the Supreme Court would encompass the 14th Amendment to carry permits.
Right. I agree. And I think that currently with the Senate that we have and the president that we have, we're not getting it. So it has to flip, and then we have to have a president that understands the value of the Second Amendment and not just gives it lip service.
Well, and let's think back to the very first 2 years of the Trump administration. And we all expected, we're going to get this, we're going to get that, we're going to get the other thing. For 2 years, they stumbled around and tried to repeal Obamacare, and nothing else happened. Nothing.
Well, the other part is that Donald Trump, he's from New York. Mm-hmm. He does not understand the second. And I'm not saying this is all New Yorkers, but if you're entrenched in that, there's some of it that rubs off. And I believe that he just does not see the value of the Second Amendment in the way that we wish he would. Mm. And so that's been a piece of it that was not on. I've got it from really good sources that the promises that Donald Trump had made, he wrote on a whiteboard on rollers and kept at the Oval Office, and he would roll it in when he had a meeting with his group, and they slowly ticked off and crossed off the campaign promises that were made. I don't believe that there were Second Amendment campaign promises made. There was high aspirations from us because, we've got a Republican president.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a promise that was made, and that's where we went wrong. And we will have to correct that.
I got a couple more comments from Michael here I want to throw in. And he's absolutely right in this first comment. He says, driving is a privilege. The Second Amendment is a right. That is 100% spot on.
We agree.
My issue is that the privilege I have is through the 14th Amendment extended to all 50 states, where my right doesn't extend to more than 39. And then Big John 410, Mike, I'll get to your second comment in just a second. Big John 410 said, Trump said last night the NRA was giving him advice like bump stocks. Yeah, and I want to use that to talk with you a little bit, Amanda. If with what you were saying before, what that brings to me, Trump went in his reelection in his election promises lately, especially paying attention to what he said at the NRA annual meeting. He made some really lofty campaign promises to that NRA crowd, specifically about the Second Amendment. Should he actually get the nomination, should he win the Oval Office again, I hope this time he's got Second Amendment promises on that whiteboard.
I do hope so. And the other thing is that he has in the past had a gun board, a group that he has the advisories, so different advisory things.
Alan Gottlieb was on it.
As was I.
Yeah.
He did not utilize us. And that's the absolute shame of it. And so there was there were like a couple opportunities, but very, very few, and most of them were not office discussions. They were more forward facing, utilizing these people as spokespeople, but not being able to get to Donald Trump. So that would be it. It will have to change. It literally. If we have an expectation, it's got to be that kind of an expectation. The interesting part is the advice is he's getting the advice from the NRA. I would be so curious as to find out who from the NRA. I mean, the NRA ILA just had a switchover of people where Jason Ouimet left, and so the high up people they're shifting around. The first Vice President Willis Lee is no longer running the chairs, so former Congressman Bob Barr is now the first Vice President. Charles Cotton has been extended for another year. So there's some stuff that's been shifted and changing, and a lot of it has to do with this New York lawsuit. But who's giving him this advice? And frankly, on bump stocks, I don't know that we had advice to give him, because one court says one thing, one court says another thing, and I know where my heart wants it to be, and where it should be, and where I think Bruin is going to take it. But would I be confident enough to tell a candidate for president of the United States, this is the way it is? Well, of course, because I got no skin in the game. I could do that, but you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I could tell anybody the way it should be.
But yeah,
whether they will listen to me is a whole nother thing.
Right. Right.
Michael, going back to his comments over on the Facebook side, says Trump has a permit and security. Yep.
Right.
And yeah, I don't think there's a way when somebody gets an office that high up, or even a leadership role in the Senate or the House, I don't think there's a way when you can get a leadership role that high that you cannot become disconnected from the regular person.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
I want to move on to our next story. Speaking of, here's a Colorado judge that does not get it. This is off of coloradopolitics.com. Although a major U.S. Supreme Court decision made last year made it easier to strike down gun safety regulations as unconstitutional. Can you tell where the article's going just from that first sentence? A federal judge agreed on Monday that a law banning the possession of guns that lack serial numbers does not run afoul of the Second Amendment. Within months of his indictment for possessing a firearm with an obliterated serial number in Denver, Jonathan Avila moved for dismissal of the criminal charge, arguing the law violated his constitutional right to bear arms. But in a May 8th order, so that was 3 days ago, U.S. District Court Senior Judge William Martinez disagreed, noting the Supreme Court has interpreted the Second Amendment as protecting the right to own weapons for the lawful purpose of self-defense. Quote, reason and experience of law enforcement counsel is that obliterating a firearm serial number serves another purpose, making the identity of a person who possesses a particular firearm more difficult to determine. This feature makes firearms with obliterated serial numbers useful for criminal activity. End quote. Consequently, he determined guns lacking serial numbers are not within the Second Amendment's protection. I just did some math here while I was doing the pre-show for this. I have up on my calculator here. As of this year, actually, it will be as of, I believe it's December of this year. It will be 232 years since the Bill of Rights was included. It was adopted into the Constitution. It has been 54 years since any serial numbers were required on firearms of any type. That was the 1968 Gun Control Act. Was the first time it was made law that firearms that are manufactured must have serial numbers. It doesn't say made, it says manufactured for the 1968 Gun Control Law. So, I don't know, Amanda.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think this judge is counter to Bruin. I think that other judges in other places have sided with. And we're not saying that this guy is or is not otherwise a law-abiding citizen or moral or upstanding, or that you want him as your neighbor. We're saying, what did Bruin say? What did 1791 history, text, and tradition say? And I think that in the long run, it's this guy's bad luck to get this judge. But I personally believe that in the long run, the Bruin case is going to peel back the 1968 gun control law, and as it will the NFA and a variety of other things. And so it will take time, and hopefully this guy's got enough chutzpah to take it up to the next court, because that's the only way that it gets up there, is that somebody takes a case, gets it to the courts, and loses, and keeps fighting.
And by the way, for those of you who might be keeping score at home, Colorado is in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. So, and if I remember right, Amanda, I think, and I really wish that we had Alex Uli on with us. I think there was a case in the 5th Circuit that said that you cannot require
there was
number.
one, but I can't tell you which circuit it was. But so, I think you may be right. But there was one recently. Yeah.
Last story we're going to have time for today. This one off ABC 7 Chicago. A single justice of the U.S. Supreme Court is now weighing whether to block Illinois' assault weapons ban from being enforced while the case is being heard in the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. Justice Amy Coney Barret, who hears applications from the 7th Circuit, could decide on her own whether to issue an emergency injunction, or she could just refer the question to the full court for consideration. She's had this case for just about a week. She got the request and took it in. We're waiting right now. They had to, Naperville and the state of Illinois had Monday to present their side of it, and we're waiting to hear what's going on from her.
Well, it was a conversation this past weekend, let me tell you, because I was in a room with Rhonda Azal too. So they're watching this, and they're watching it hard. But the interesting part is that every one of the Supreme Court justices is issued a state or a series of states, and so this is her, Amy Coney Barrett's state. She has Illinois. I sincerely hope that she just smacks it down there. But then on the other hand, the other part of me goes, oh man, I wish it goes to the full Supreme Court, because then we get to see Clarence Thomas with fire and brimstone going, I told you don't bring this stuff to me, because don't make me get out of this chair. Don't make me stop the car, right? That's what I'm expecting. So I don't know whether to hope that mom just handles it, or that they take it to dad. That's That's where I want to see it.
Yeah, I would love for Clarence Thomas to pull the car over and drag those kids out of the back seat and give them a good spanking. That nothing would please me more.
This is where we're headed. This is absolutely where we're headed. So it's gonna be good. Though, Paul, I have to say that it makes us big, big, big nerds in the fact that we're like watching the Supreme Court like it is a football game.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, believe me, over the past 2 years, I have become a frequent flyer at scotusblog.org. Mm-hmm. I read that site very, very often. We're just about out of time, Amanda. If you would, normally I ask you to plug, but what I want you to today is to talk about Schmeeple, and you're starting something, doing something with them.
Yes. So Schmeeple is subject matter expert people. So they consolidated it to make it Smeeple. And Smeeple is a brand new company that is just coming out. I mean, right now they are gathering their experts, and then they're going to go public with the other part. But you have to think about it like it is YouTube, Zoom, and Angie's List that all got mixed into a cake together. So it is subject matter experts that you can call up, have a face-to-face Zoom meeting with them, and pick their brains on their topic. So let's say that you have a lock that you need to be able to pick. There is a locksmith that will show you how to do that. You have a faucet that you need to be able to change. You want to put a different muffler on your motorcycle. You want to talk about podcasting or interview skills or whatever that is. All of those types of experts are starting to line up onto Smeeple.com, SMEEPLE.com. And I'm part of the outdoors section of it, and I'm like, I looked at it, I talked to the owner of it, the developer of it, and I think it's pretty much got potential. And so I'm reaching out to people to say, if you have a skill or if you are an expert on something that you are better at that than anybody else go and register to be an expert and see what they say.
All right. Got a comment in from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Charlie Cook, who was on yesterday's program, says that locksmith better be Tony Simon. And that would be, not only would you learn something, that would be the most entertaining time learning something from somebody. I'm telling you, that guy he charges me up every time I get to talk with him.
Yes, exactly.
So that is going to do it. We're a little bit over time, but I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you for commenting. Podcast listeners, thank you for listening. Do come join me tomorrow when Tom Walls of the Firearms Academy of Seattle will join us. And we're going to be discussing, is shooting a firearm a martial art? We'll cover that tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you.